you said you had an issue with ableism. It clicks with me and I understand it and relate to it, but I'm curious to know what your take is on that.
I hate the word, personally. I don't think we need to have more terms and labels for what is essentially ill treatment of others. We have some historical terms which are grounded in anti-Semitism, race, gender, that sort of thing. But I wasn't on the committee when disabled people decided, we need the equivalent of racism or sexism in the disabled community. It's like, why? Why have you got to invent a label to now use as a flag? Like, I don't see the value of it. And the way it's used is such, like, it's just such broad strokes. And I know there's levels to everything. Like racism, there's levels to it, but we can all look at a situation and go, that's racist, or you can see a side of it where you think, oh, that's racist. But here's an example where ableism is bullshit. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was someone on Twitter, a wheelchair user, went to a hotel and they tweeted about a hairdryer which was plugged in and it was up on a shelf that they couldn't really reach. And they basically said, this is an ableist establishment. I have the right to dry my hair like that. I'm thinking, they're like, oh, well, have you spoken to him about it? Can it not get you another hairdryer? Did you not bring your own? It's like, this isn't ableism. This is just a hairdryer. Like, what are you talking about? But you get that side of it, but then ableism is also used in cases where someone can't access a building or is refused access because of an assistance dog. And okay, fair enough. If there's genuine grounds of prejudice there, but when you're using the same word for both instances, it means absolutely nothing, because you can throw any situation that you're unhappy about and use that word. And I think that's why it's so dangerous, because you run the risk of basically making the whole world super sensitive. And like you said, it's about being like this woke mentality. It goes a little bit too far sometimes. You should be allowed to make mistakes without persecution, because we don't know everything. But we don't want to get to a place where everyone's being so careful about every tiny thing. It'd be a boring life, wouldn't it? Come on. Like, there's no excitement in life if everyone's just like being politically correct and considerate all the time. And we never leave EDI meetings, for Christ's sake.
You know what? That's an interesting point, because I think ableism is real. I think ableism is a thing, but I do agree with you that I think the word is overused, and I think that's maybe what you're saying. But like, I think that, and people have different takes on what ableism is or what that actually means. My definition might be different than someone else's. Like, another word that's overused all the time, here in the States is, everything's racist, everything's sexist, everything is transphobic, everything is, and it's just like, everything can't be that. And sometimes I scratch my head at some scenarios that are called these words, and I'm like, what? I don't necessarily agree. Like the hairdryer thing. Like, I agree with you. That's like, it's a stretch. So could it be that, words like ableism are just overused, or?
I think that is the case. I sort of feel that as well, though, about sometimes I feel that derogatory words, if people use them so much to the point they lose all value, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'd rather everyone used it 10 times a day deliberately, absolutely anyone, to the point where that word has lost all meaning, than completely avoiding it, because then in a hushed whisper in a back alley conversation, someone's going to say it, and it's at that point it's really bad. But like you say, if you use it for such a large capacity of things that it could possibly mean, then what does that word even mean after a period of time? You're going to be inventing a new word.
We have one word that covers all of this. It's called discrimination. Like, why can't we just have the one word, and you can have a situation which is discriminatory. That's like, okay, why is it? And then you can sort of say, okay, it's discrimination because that individual is black or a woman, or they're gay or trans or any form of discrimination. We don't need to keep inventing words. Like, we all agree that discrimination is not a good thing. But then when you start getting into the whole creating a term for every single, like, where does it stop? Like, where do we stop with this? Do we now start combining things where, like, example, like if you have a black woman who's also disabled and trans, do they now need a word that consists of all of the instances where they might be discriminated against, or do they just use discrimination as a blanket term, which we all agree is not a good thing? But why do they need to? Because you could have 4 different labels of an ism that would apply to a situation where they have had a negative experience. And I'm just thinking, well, do we need any more of these words? Do they need to be thrown around so much? Well, if they are, they need to be thrown around to a point where they are meaningless, like Cleve just said, and that's fine. But we just need to have that consensus of, we know discrimination's wrong. If that word's used, we know that someone's getting in trouble. There's some legal ramifications about that.
But it's that the words are getting stretched as well, that they're being used for such minor instances where people might have just overstepped the boundary without even realising it, and there'd be like zero malice or anything like that behind it. It's just that they've said the wrong word without even knowing it. And okay, you tell them, oh, you can't really use that word anymore. It's not generally accepted. And the person probably just be like, oh, right, I didn't know that. Okay, I won't use it again. What's wrong with that? Like, it doesn't have to be this big
social lynching.
Yeah.